Rhett Collins was halfway through polishing the last row of champagne flutes when the event planner shoved a tray into his hands and muttered, "You're working the terrace now, don't spill anything. The CEO's out there." He barely had time to respond before she disappeared into the flurry of white-jacketed servers and glittering guests. Rhett adjusted the stiff bow tie that felt like a noose around his throat, exhaled, and pushed open the double doors to the rooftop terrace. The cool night air hit his face, and the city skyline stretched wide in front of him, buzzing with light. He took a step forward, tray balanced perfectly, and then asked for sparkling water, not champagne. A woman's voice said behind him, smooth but sharp. He turned. She stood beside one of the tall cocktail tables, a glass in hand, her dark hair falling over one shoulder in soft waves. Her dress was sleek, navy, and clearly expensive, but it was her eyes, clear, direct, and unimpressed, that froze him. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I can get you one." Her gaze flicked to his name tag, then back up to his face. "Rhett, right?" He blinked. Yeah, first night." "Well, Rhett," a slow smile broke across her lips. "You're the first person here who hasn't fawned or lied to me tonight. I'll take that champagne after all." He handed her the glass, confused. "You're the CEO." She gave a little shrug. "Celia Jameson, I own the place." He stared. She looked his age, maybe early 30s. Not at all what he expected from the woman whose name was plastered on the outside of the Jameson Foundation building. She took a sip. "You're not from the agency, are you?" "No, he hesitated. "I needed something fast. My buddy's sister runs the catering company. She got me in." Celia tilted her head. "You've got the hands of someone who's used to heavier work." Rhett laughed under his breath. "Used to fix cars, before the shop closed last year." "Ah," she took another sip, watching him. "And you've got a kid, don't you?" His jaw tightened. "Yes, Danny, he's 5, and not great at sleeping without 3 bedtime stories and a dinosaur night light." Something changed in her face. Softer now, less CEO, more woman. "You're doing all this alone?" He nodded once. "His mom left when he was 2. I've been figuring it out ever since." Celia set the glass down and leaned on the railing. "That's a lot." "Yeah, well, no choice, right?" He started to turn back toward the party, but she stopped him. "Wait, do you have another shift here?" "No, just tonight." She looked him over for a long beat, then said, "There's another gala next weekend. Bigger, you want to come back?" He raised a brow. "You hiring me?" "I'm not saying I'm not." He chuckled. "You always this direct." "Only with people who don't lie to me," she said. "You seem real." Rhett didn't know what to say to that. In the last year, no one had looked at him like that. Like he wasn't just the broke guy trying to get by, like he mattered. Before he could reply, someone called her name from inside. "I have to get back," she said, stepping past him, but she paused, her voice a little lower. "You're interesting, Rhett Collins. Come back next week." And she was gone. The next Saturday, Rhett stood outside the grand ballroom in a fresh white shirt that he'd ironed 3 times, hoping to God he didn't look like someone who'd barely scraped together enough gas money to make it. Celia found him before he even stepped inside. "You came," she said, smiling. "You invited me." "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," he admitted. "Danny's with my neighbor tonight. I owe her big." Celia's smile softened. "I'm glad you're here." The night moved fast. Music, laughter, glamour, all of it blurring around him. But whenever she passed him on the floor, her hand brushing his arm, eyes lingering just a little too long, he felt it. Something building. After the last guests trickled out, Celia found him again. Alone now, barefoot, heels in one hand. "You look like you hate tuxedos," she teased. Not a fan, he said. You. I only wear this stuff when I have to. Most days I'm in jeans. He smiled. That's hard to picture. She shrugged. I grew up on a ranch in Montana. My dad wore flannel to my high school graduation. You're kidding. Dead serious. They were quiet for a moment, the city lights flickering behind her. You want a ride home? She asked, casual but hopeful. I took the train. I've got a driver. He hesitated. You sure? I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. Her black car was parked outside, the backseat cleaner than most hotel lobbies. She slid in beside him, and for a few beats, neither of them said anything. Then she turned to him. You don't treat me like I'm some big deal. You're a person, he said simply. You just happen to own a lot of buildings. She laughed. I like talking to you. I like talking to you too. She looked at him longer this time. Her fingers brushed his. I want to see you again, not at a gala, just you and me. His heart kicked hard. I'd like that, he said. And when she leaned in, slow and certain, her lips brushing his, he didn't pull away. He kissed her back. Harder than he expected, like something he hadn't felt in ages had just cracked open inside him. When they pulled apart, she said softly, You're not what I expected. Neither are you. She smiled, eyes shining. Good. They didn't say anything else for the rest of the ride. But when they reached his apartment, small, clean, worn around the edges, she pressed her number into his hand and said, Call me, for real. He stood on the curb as her car pulled away, heart pounding. He hadn't planned on falling for anyone. Especially not the woman who owned half the city. But here she was. And Rhett Collins wasn't going to waste the chance. It was barely noon when Rhett heard the knock. He wiped his hands on a dish towel and opened the door, expecting Mrs. Langley from next door to ask for her mail again. Instead, there was a man in a charcoal suit standing on the welcome mat, holding a white envelope. Rhett Collins, the man asked, glancing at a clipboard. Yeah. The man handed him the envelope. You're invited. Details are inside. Without another word, he turned and walked off down the hall. Rhett stared at the envelope like it might explode. He opened it slowly. Inside was a thick cream-colored invitation card with his name printed in gold across the front. No title, no +1. Just a time, a date, and an address in Tribeca. Below that, a handwritten note. Wear something you don't mind being photographed in. I'll handle the rest. See. He looked down at his jeans and oil-stained t-shirt. Great, he muttered. Rhett didn't own anything that could be described as photogenic. His best shirt had a missing button, and his only pair of dress shoes squeaked. After putting Danny down for his nap, he made a call to his buddy Caleb. You still got that blazer from your wedding? You mean the one with the weird shiny lapels? Yeah. You finally scoring a date or getting blackmailed? Don't know yet. The building in Tribeca had no signage, just a steel door and a woman with an earpiece and a clipboard. A name. Rhett Collins. She glanced down, then waved him in. Go up to the 4th floor, they're waiting. He stepped inside and took the elevator up, heart hammering. The doors opened to a space that looked nothing like a typical apartment. The floor was polished concrete, the ceiling high and industrial, with massive windows flooding the room with afternoon light. A string quartet played softly in the background. Glad you came, Celia said from the far end of the room, her voice echoing slightly in the open space. She wore a deep burgundy dress, nothing flashy, but somehow it made the air around her feel warmer. This is not what I expected, Rhett said. I figured you'd say that, She walked toward him, heels silent on the floor. It's not a party, it's a shoot. Oh, what? Press wants a feature, the face behind the Jameson Foundation. They insisted on photos. I insisted on you. He blinked. Wait, I'm in the pictures. You're part of my life now. They want authenticity. Her eyes moved over him. You clean up better than I expected. I borrowed this, he said, tugging at the blazer. She smiled. You're still you, that's why I wanted you here. The photographer was already setting up. Rhett hesitated as the camera flashed. I'm not good at this, he muttered. Just look at me, Celia said, stepping closer. He did. And somehow, the rest of the room faded away. Afterward, she pulled him aside, away from the assistants packing up equipment. I have something else to show you. She led him to a different door, further down the hall. Inside, the walls were covered in blueprints and sketches. A scale model of a building sat on a table near the windows. This is the Madison Project, she said. A community center, affordable childcare, after-school programs, vocational training. I've been fighting for approval for almost a year. He walked closer to the model. This is in the East End. She nodded, near the old train yard. My uncle used to live over there. That place has nothing. Exactly, I want to change that. He turned toward her. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to help me build it. He stared at her. Fix cars, not buildings. You understand people, struggle, what those families need. I want someone who's lived it, not just someone who's read a report. He rubbed a hand over his jaw. That's a lot. I know. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a chance to be part of something permanent. For a long time, he didn't speak. Then he nodded once. Okay, I'll do it. Her shoulders relaxed. Good, you'll start by meeting with the planning team next week. He looked around again. This must cost a fortune. She didn't answer. Instead, she crossed the room and picked up a folder. There's something else. Inside were photos. One of him and Danny at the park. Another of the inside of their apartment. One of him working under a car hood. He looked up, alarmed. I had someone do a background check, she said, voice low. Before invited you last week. His face hardened. You spying on me. I had to be sure. I've been burned before. I needed to know you weren't using me. He handed the folder back. You already decided who I was before you asked me anything. I know, and I'm sorry. He turned toward the door. Rhett, wait. He stopped, hand on the handle. I was wrong, but I'm trying to trust you now. I'm trying to learn how. He looked back at her. I don't care about the folder, he said. Care that you didn't ask. I will from now on. He nodded slowly, then we're square. She stepped forward. Can I see Danny sometime? He didn't hesitate. Yeah, he'd like that. She smiled, but this time it was quieter, less polished. He walked out without saying goodbye. But he knew he'd be back. Rhett stood at the edge of the playground, leaning against the chain-link fence while Danny climbed the jungle gym like he was training for a summit. It was late afternoon, the kind with golden light that made everything look softer than it was. He checked his watch, then glanced toward the parking lot. She said she'd come. He believed her, but still, something twisted in his gut. A sleek black car pulled up. The door opened, and Celia stepped out, wearing jeans, sneakers, and a faded gray hoodie that looked borrowed. She waved at him before ducking under the fence latch and walking over. You weren't kidding, she said, nodding toward Danny. He's fast. He's a blur until bedtime, Rhett replied. Then he's a philosopher with a million questions. Celia crouched near the jungle gym and held up her hand. Hey, I'm Celia. Your dad said could come say hi. Danny studied her for a moment, then offered a cautious wave. Do you like dinosaurs? I love dinosaurs, she said seriously, especially the ones with big teeth. Danny grinned and launched into a ramble about the T-Rex's bite force. Celia listened like he was delivering a keynote speech. Rhett watched from the side, arms crossed. It was strange seeing her here, not in heels or under lights, not surrounded by polished people with empty flattery. She looked grounded, real. After a while, Danny ran off to the slide, and she stood, brushing dirt off her knees. He's incredible, she said quietly. He's my whole world. I can see that. They walked to the bench and sat. She pulled a thermos from her bag. I brought coffee. I figured you'd be undercaffeinated. He accepted the cup. You figured right. I had a meeting with the zoning board this morning, she said. Madison project's getting more pushback than I expected. Someone's trying to stall it. Any idea who? A rival developer. Wants to buy the block for condos. He's throwing money at the council to delay our permits. Rhett frowned. You think he'll win? Not if I can help it. They sat in silence for a beat. Then she added, I've never had someone at my side who didn't want something from me. You're different. I'm not looking for a piece of your empire, Celia. I know, that's why I keep showing up. He watched Danny sprint toward the swings, arms stretched like a plane. I can't promise I'll always be available. My life's not flexible. I'm not asking for convenience. I'm asking for real. Rhett looked at her. You sure you're ready for real? It's messy. So is everything worth having. He exhaled slowly. Sometimes I wonder if I'm dragging him through too much. He deserves more than I can give. Celia didn't speak for a moment. Then, you give him what no one else can, stability, love. That's worth more than anything money can buy. The words hit harder than he expected. He looked down at his hands, calloused and rough. You've got a way of saying things that stick. She smiled, then reached into her bag again, pulling out a small box. I got something for him. He gave her a look. You didn't have to. It's not expensive. She opened it to reveal a small plastic watch with a dinosaur on the face. Just something for him to wear. He said he wanted to be a time traveler. Rhett chuckled. That sounds like him. He called Danny over and handed it to him. The boy's eyes lit up like he'd been handed a magic relic. Can I wear it now? Course, Celia said, helping him loop the strap. Danny took off again, showing it off to a kid near the swings. You're good with him, Rhett said, surprised. I raised my younger brother after our mom passed. He was 5 when it happened. I was 17. Rhett turned startled. You never mentioned that. I don't talk about it much. I was trying to finish school and run a household. I got good at pretending, I had it all under control. That's why you fight so hard for these projects. I know what it's like to feel forgotten. He studied her. You don't seem forgotten now. Money changed everything, but it didn't fix everything. Rhett nodded slowly. I get that. Just then, Danny ran up out of breath. Can we get ice cream? Celia looked at Rhett. He shrugged. You up for it? Only if we get sprinkles. Danny cheered and took her hand without hesitation. As they walked down the street together, Rhett felt something strange, like the world had tilted just slightly into place. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't carrying everything alone. And as Celia laughed at something Danny said about mint chocolate chip being a superior flavor, Rhett realized something even stranger. He didn't feel out of place anymore. He felt like he belonged. Rhett stood outside the mirrored doors of the Jameson Foundation headquarters, tugging at the collar of the charcoal gray button down Celia had sent over 2 days ago. still bearing the faint scent of cedar from the garment bag. He'd never owned anything remotely this tailored, and he'd certainly never worn anything that arrived by private courier with a handwritten note tucked inside. No more borrowed clothes. This one's yours. See you Tuesday. Inside, the lobby was a cathedral of glass and clean lines. A receptionist greeted him by name before directing him to the executive floor. He passed curated art, minimalist decor, and the subtle hush of wealth that didn't need to shout to be heard. The elevator opened directly into a sweeping office with floor-to-ceiling windows and an unobstructed view of the city. Celia stood at the far end, her back to him, deep in conversation with 3 people seated around a glass table. She caught his reflection and turned. "Perfect timing," she said, crossing to him with that same effortless confidence she carried at galas and playgrounds alike. "Come meet the team." The introductions were quick urban designers, a former school superintendent, and a nonprofit strategist. Rhett shook hands with all of them, feeling their curious eyes on him, but no judgment, only interest. Celia gestured to the empty seat beside hers. "We're finalizing the outreach plan. I want your input." He hesitated. "You sure?" She didn't blink. "I'm very sure." They spent the next hour dissecting neighborhood data, identifying local leaders, and planning community forums. Rhett spoke honestly, drawing from people he knew, streets he'd walked, and problems he'd lived. And every time he spoke, the room listened. After the meeting, Celia walked him out to the terrace just off her office. The air was crisp, the sun low. "You were incredible in there," she said, resting her hands on the railing. "I was terrified." "You didn't show it." He glanced at the skyline. "I've never been around people like that, but they didn't make me feel small." "Because you weren't." He looked at her. "Why are you doing this, Celia? All of it, me, Danny, the project. It's not just generosity." "No, it's not." She stepped closer. "It's because I see something in you I didn't know I needed. You ground me, Rhett. You make everything real. And with you, I'm not performing for anyone." He studied her face, the way the light caught the edge of her jaw. "I never thought I'd fit into a world like this." "You're not fitting into it. You're changing it." Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. "What is it?" "My lawyer just confirmed something." Her voice tightened. "The developer trying to block our permits? It's my uncle, my father's younger brother. He's been buying up properties under a shell company." Rhett took a step closer. "You think he's trying to take over the foundation?" "He's always resented me, blamed my father for keeping him out of the board. If he can make the Madison project fail, he'll paint me as reckless. Unfit." "Can you fight it?" "I have to, but I'll need help." He didn't hesitate. "You've got me." Her eyes met his. That's what scares him, that I'm not alone anymore. That night, Rhett returned home to find Danny asleep on the couch, a blanket half draped over him. "Mrs." Langley waved from the kitchen where she was rinsing dishes. He insisted on waiting up. "Thanks for staying," Rhett said, lifting his son gently and carrying him to bed. Later, he sat on the edge of the mattress, brushing Danny's hair back. The boy stirred, eyes barely open. "Did she come today?" "Yeah, buddy, she came." "Good," Danny mumbled. "She makes stuff feel better." Rhett swallowed hard, then leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Yeah, she does." The next morning, Rhett met Celia at the construction site. The lot was still just dirt and flagged stakes, but crews were setting up fencing, and a sign bearing the foundation's logo had been hammered into place. She handed him a hard hat. "You're co-leading the community engagement team now. I've already submitted your name." He blinked. "That's official." "As of this morning." He stared at the empty lot, the future rising like a promise. "This is really happening." She nodded, "And there's something else." She led him to the back of a parked SUV and opened the trunk. Inside was a brand new red bicycle, training wheels already attached, and a small white helmet with blue racing stripes. For Danny. He's been talking about learning to ride. I thought maybe we could teach him together. Rhett closed the trunk slowly, then turned to her. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to, she said simply. He stepped closer, his voice low. You want to build something permanent with me, Celia. Her breath caught, yes. Then let's start now. He cupped her face and kissed her, not like the first time uncertain and electric, but like something settled. Like home. The following weekend, the Madison Project broke ground. Local families gathered, music played, and Rhett stood beside Celia beneath a white canopy as she gave her speech. When she finished, she handed him the mic. He looked out at the crowd, then down at Danny, sitting cross-legged near the front, wearing his dinosaur watch and red sneakers. I used to think people like me didn't belong in places like this, he began. But Celia showed me that changing the world doesn't start with money. It starts with people who believe in each other, who show up, over and over again. He looked at her then, eyes steady. And I'm not going anywhere. The applause swelled, but all Rhett could hear was the sound of Danny cheering. That night, on the rooftop of the foundation building, Celia surprised him with a long table set for 3. Candles flickered in the breeze, and the city stretched wide beneath them. As they sat down, Danny lifted his glass of apple juice. To us, he said. Celia raised hers, to new beginnings. Rhett clinked both their glasses with his, to family. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't wonder how he'd hold it all together. Because he wasn't doing it alone anymore. He'd taken a job he never wanted, walked into a world he never imagined, and found the one thing he didn't know he was missing. Love that didn't ask him to change. Just to be exactly who he was. Rhett adjusted the collar of his jacket and glanced down the row of seats inside the city council chamber. Every seat was filled. Cameramen lined the back wall, and murmurs buzzed like static beneath the high ceiling. Celia sat beside him, her expression unreadable, but her fingers brushed his under the table an unspoken promise. The vote was moments away. Months of planning, sleepless nights, backdoor meetings, and one relentless smear campaign from her uncle had led to this. If the council voted against the Madison Project today, it wouldn't just mean the end of the center, it could mean Celia's position at the foundation, her reputation, everything. Councilwoman Garza leaned toward her microphone. Before we proceed, I would like to note the recent allegations regarding financial mismanagement tied to the Jameson Foundation's East End initiative have been investigated and found to be unsubstantiated. The vote today will move forward as originally scheduled. Celia let out a breath, quiet but sharp. Rhett gave her hand a quick squeeze beneath the table. One by one, the names were called and votes cast. When it was over, the final tally lit up on the overhead screen. Approved. The room erupted. Applause, cheers, even a few tears. Celia stood slowly, her face still frozen in disbelief. You did it, Rhett said. No, she whispered, turning to him. We did. Reporters surged forward, but she didn't let go of his hand. Not when they pushed microphones toward her, not when the questions flew. Instead, she turned, raised their entwined hands like a declaration, and said, This isn't just about concrete and buildings. This is about people, about second chances, and I wouldn't be standing here without him. Later that night, Celia didn't want champagne or formal dinners. She wanted quiet, she wanted clarity. They stood in her kitchen, barefoot, the city humming beyond the windows. The only light came from the open fridge. Rhett handed her a spoon and a pint of ice cream, and she leaned against the counter, her shoulder brushing his. You really think it'll make a difference? The center? She asked. I know it will. She turned to face him. I've spent so much of my life trying to be perfect, to earn my last name, to outpace the people waiting for me to fall, but you're the first person who never asked me to prove anything. You never had to. Her eyes searched his. I want more than this project, Rhett. I want something that lasts. I want a life with you. He stepped closer. Then let's build one. No contracts, no press, no board approvals, just us. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn velvet box. I was going to wait, but that sounds like a yes to me. Her breath caught as he opened it. Inside was a simple gold ring, no diamonds, no fanfare. I didn't want something that screamed money. I wanted something that felt like you, he said. Tears welled in her eyes. It's perfect. He slipped it onto her finger. So is this. She kissed him then, slow and certain, the kind of kiss that sealed things without needing words. The wedding was small, just a garden, close friends, and Danny grinning wide as he walked down the aisle, tossing petals in every direction. Rhett wore the same jacket Celia had sent him months earlier. She wore a white dress that flowed like water and no shoes. After the vows, Danny tugged at Celia's hand. So now you're my real mom. She crouched beside him, eyes glossy. If you'll have me. He nodded solemnly. Only if you come to parent day at school. A deal. They danced under string lights, barefoot on the grass. The music was soft, the night warm. No photographers, no speeches, just laughter and the smell of roses in the air. After the guests left, Rhett and Celia sat on the back steps of the garden, watching Danny chase fireflies. So, she said, resting her head on his shoulder, what now? We wake up tomorrow, we figure out breakfast, and then we go build that center. And after that... He kissed the top of her head. After that, we keep building. Years later, the Madison Center stood tall at the heart of the East End, a hub of light and possibility. Children poured through its doors each morning. Families found support. Teens found direction. Inside the main entry, a plaque hung by the reception desk. In honor of second chances, the strength of community, and the love that built this place. Rhett, Celia, and Danny Collins. They visited every Saturday. Rhett ran workshops in the garage bay for teens interested in mechanics. Celia taught a finance class once a month. Danny, now older and taller, helped organize weekend events. They built a life filled with purpose, laughter, and love that didn't need to announce itself. It was felt in the way Celia still looked at Rhett when he laughed, in the way Danny ran to him after school, and in the quiet moments when they all shared the same space and realized they'd made it. Not into someone else's idea of perfection, but into something better. Their own.